right. So we had a pretty good episode today. Today we have Pete McGuinn on from Remax Main Line. I enjoyed the conversation. I think that we got into some really cool stuff. This business, the mortgage business, the real estate business is not an easy business. And I think we tapped into some pretty funny conversations, but some lessons today. What do you think?
I think that it was really cool to kind of break down the difference of what motivates people and negative stimulation versus positive stimulation. I think if you listen, you're going to get a whole lot out of it in terms of what drives you and how to have grit, as we say.
And I think that if he didn't steal his guidance counselor's car, his guidance counselor might have given him different advice.
There's definitely there's some gems in this one.
All right, well, let's get to it. Listen, let us know what you think. Subscribe and share this show with your friends.
You're listening to Selling the Dream. This isn't an interview, and we're not journalists. But each week, we'll ask our guests to open up and share their secrets to business success. Let's have a conversation and have some fun.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Selling the Dream, our project, our excuse to hang out. Joe and I, Joe Ironel, my co-host from Delco, currently living in California. As always, joining me here today. We got a pretty cool show for you. Yeah, man, we're here to talk about sales, entrepreneurship, leadership. Those are our themes, but I think today maybe we'll get in trouble. Maybe we'll have some fun. I don't know. We'll see. What's going on, Joe?
Not much, man. Just rocking and rolling, baby. So what's it? It's day 3 for you off the drink, or what?
It is officially like hour 13.
All right, there you go. You get to hour 14.
I'm working on it, though.
That's
one
good.
day at a time. Not to make light of that kind of stuff, but
That's day, dude. I'm telling you, it's a beautiful thing, dude.
Yeah. I'll get there. You keep being that beacon, that lighthouse. I'll get there eventually.
Tipping point. And
It's kind of hard when you hang out with like certain people. You know, some people that are hanging out with us right now. Like it's hard. You know what I mean? To not drink.
Let me say this because this is I've heard this several times recently. They say if you hang out with 4 drunks, you'll be the 5th. If you hang out with 4 billionaires, you'll be the 5th. So you hang out with me, you'll be both.
All right, Joe. You got it, brother. I'll believe it when I see it. I was out with Dave Sinclair the other night. Yeah, me, him, and Liam went out. It was we had a lot of fun. Told some Joe stories. It was a good time. It was a good time.
He knows where the bodies are buried, that's for sure.
He should. Now Liam knows where the bodies are buried, which is kind of scary. So if you're watching this on YouTube, Pete's just sitting here awkwardly, like quiet as we talk. If you're listening on podcast, you don't even know he's there. But yeah, let's bring our buddy in. We should have some fun today. Pete McGuinn and I have been friends for, gosh, I want to say maybe 12 years. Has it been that long, Pete?
I don't know, to be honest. I think I had a full head of hair when we started hanging out. I mean, so
I don't know. I don't think you did.
Spoiler alert. That's my lie.
Oh, damn. See, we're already there. So Pete, 20 years in real estate. 22 years in real estate. So we basically came in at the same time. We've seen all the ups. We've seen the downs. Pete is a man of determination and grit. And I thought that would be a great opportunity to bring him in and talk about some of the things that Joe and I talk about. So Pete, thank you very much for joining us today, and we look forward to having a nice chat.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, so first things first. I'm getting better at this. I don't want to forget about our two truths and a lie.
Sure.
90% of the episodes I forget, and then I have to like awkwardly work it in the middle, and it's not an easy thing to do. I pull it off, but it's not an easy thing to do.
All right. You do all right.
Yeah, I do all right. So we're gonna go right to it right now. We're gonna start two truths and a lie. Joe, the human lie detector is gonna figure it out by the end of the episode. Keep you on your toes. Make sure you don't slip up. Why don't you?
Tell you, my record hasn't been very good lately.
Joe, I wasn't gonna say anything, but you're right. You really.
I've been looking.
You gotta get. Well, our guests are getting savvier. I think
They are.
especially when they know that you're going to guess the lie, right?
Yeah.
I think that has something to do with it.
Yeah.
I'm just, that makes you feel any better.
It doesn't, but all right. Well,
All right, Pete, let's go for it, man. What are your two truths and a lie?
Well, I'm going to do it sports-based, two truths and a lie, and it's probably for the same reason. Like, I got sports on the brain ever since the Super Bowl. Probably part of the reason why you're going through your drying out period is the Super Bowl run. I think most of Philadelphia probably feels the same way. Anyhow, getting down to it, the three things are: I grew up behind a future Hall of Fame athlete. I don't know if I should, for number two, I don't know if I should use the person's name, but anyway. I once sold a house to somebody who may have caught a pass on 4th and 26th in South Philadelphia. And the third one is I have a Super Bowl champion that lives in my neighborhood.
Super Bowl champ in your neighborhood, grew up behind a future Hall of Famer, and sold a house to Mr. Delivery, Fred X.
Yeah.
Because he
so
always
is the
delivers.
Hall of Famer Mike Schmidt. You live in like Springton.
Wait, whoa,
Whoa,
Joe.
whoa.
Get
20
to that.
questions all of a sudden? We're changing the setup here.
All right.
No, I'm just making fun. He doesn't live, no, and he doesn't live there anymore.
Okay.
All right, so let's get into it, Pete. I know that one of the great, we have some really good conversations. One of the great conversations we had not long ago was, we talked about the value, because this is a discussion here, because maybe we agree, maybe we disagree. The value and or lack of value of the chip on one shoulder.
Yes.
All right. So I'm gonna turn the floor over to you. To start, how important is it that someone, or how valuable is it to have a chip on your shoulder? Let's start there. What is it? A, do you think you have a chip on your shoulder?
Well, yeah. So I think the conversation started from an event that we both went to, your event that you were hosting, and I said a joke, which may be true, maybe not. Where I said I've had a chip on my shoulder so long I should have named it. So I can only speak from my own experience, obviously, but I don't always look at some of these things that we go through as a negative. Obviously, they might come from a negative place to start, depending on what what created that chip. But I think what we were talking about, or what I struggle with sometimes is, I think a lot of people have a backstory. Obviously, a lot of people have gone through different things throughout their lives. But, for me personally, the things that I went through gave me this chip, and this chip has pushed me beyond where I think I may have gotten otherwise. And the reason why I'm looking at that now is I have 3 kids, 6, 8, and 10 years old, and I'm doing everything possible to give them a great life, as I should, but at the same time, I was wondering, not that I'm looking to set them up to struggle, but I was wondering, if I create this life where they don't have that same struggle that I had, will they end up at the end of the day having the motivation that I've had? And that's something that I really struggle with. I don't want to make their lives hard. I don't want to make them struggle by any means. But at the same time, looking at my own life, part of the reason why I am where I am is because of the struggle, because of that chip. So it's a difficult thing that I'm actively struggling with, to be honest with you.
It's interesting that you say that. So as I define what a chip on your shoulder means, like some people look at a chip on their shoulder as like, I had to come through adversity and get through the adversity. Other definitions or perceptions of what a chip on a shoulder might mean is how someone responds to doubters. And I think that, let's so Joe, why don't I pass this over to you for a minute? Like how important is it that you come through adversity? Number one, that's one version of having a chip on your shoulder. And number two, how do you feel about doubters?
I so I have the same dilemma with my kids, where it's like I know I got to where I am because of chip on my shoulder, but it didn't have to do with the access and the availability and what I had. It had to do with doubters. Like that's the chip. Like, and literally that is my main motivation, is when people tell me you can't do this because of that or whatever. And I always say, I need everyone in the world to tell me I can't. I need like one or two people to help me believe that I can, and I can do anything. So that's where my chip comes from. Literally, like everything that I've done stems from something in the back of my head where someone's been like, "Oh, that's crazy," or "You're nuts," or whatever. Like your ideas are nuts, and or if somebody screwed me over, they're like, "Dude, it's on. Like here we go," and like that drives me to no end. Like I will go to the ends of the earth. I'll burn the world down to get somebody back. Like for real, as bad as that sounds, but that's it. That gets me up. So yes, I have a chip on my shoulder, but then to the flip side of that, is that better to provide, like remove obstacles for your kids or for people that like make them struggle? Like, so I don't think there's necessarily, I'll tie this all together. I don't think there's a correlation between common struggle versus revenge chip, or like motivation of like, I'm going to do this because it's going to get a stimulus from someone who's given me a negative feedback in the past. So that's where the difference is, I think.
Pete, when you talk about your chip, right? Let's just call him Chip, right? We just gave him a name.
Hey.
We were talking to Chip. When you and Chip are hanging out, shooting shit.
Yeah.
Your chip on your shoulder comes from adversity. Is it how does your chip relate to the doubters? Or is it just self-doubt? Maybe is it self-doubt that you had to constantly come through, not realizing whether you even could in some cases, but you were forced to because you had no choice?
Not, you know what? I don't think I ever I don't think I ever had self-doubt. I think where like a big part of it came from was when I remember when I was in high school, we had a guidance counselor, and he had been with us for years. I don't really understand why now that I look back on it, but he started with us in middle school, and I don't know if they were doing a thing where the guidance counselor like moved along with you every year as you kind of progressed through school. But whatever, if that was or wasn't, that's what happened. So he was with us from middle school. When we all came over to high school, he was with us, etc. And then I remember I struggled in school. I have a learning disability, more prevalent when I'm in class every day. But anyway, so when it got to the point where we were supposed to meet with this guidance counselor and talk about what the next steps are, I remember I went in one day and said, like, hey, I don't know. I think I want to be in business for myself, but I know to do that, maybe I should go to college. And he literally looked at me and said, you don't need to worry about it. You're going to go to jail. And I was like, what? And he was dead serious.
Straight face.
Huh? Oh, yeah. And look, in all honesty, like when I grew up, because of other things that were going on outside of that, I did go through a period of getting into a fair amount of trouble in school, but it was never jail time trouble. It was like nonsense trouble, like things to get me suspended, but not arrested,
Never convicted.
Yeah. Allegedly, never convicted. But yeah, so he looked at me with a completely straight face and said, don't worry about it. You're going to go to jail. And I was like, are you serious? And he was dead serious. He never helped in the situation with trying to pick out a school or figure out what to do, because in his mind, he had already written me off, and I was a senior in high school. And so I remember that day, and I haven't done this, and I probably shouldn't even say this on the podcast. It's going to be on YouTube. But I remember that day, I was so pissed. And I said, someday we're going to come back. And I don't even know where I came up with this thing at the time, but I was just so angry. I was like, someday I'm going to come back. I'm going to find your mortgage. I'm going to buy it. And every month you have to pay me to live in your house.
That would have been awesome.
I looked it up. He still has a mortgage. I do look it up from time to time, although I don't have the
possibility that this guy's just a genius, though. and he motivated you. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it could have been like,
could
how
it
do I
be?
get rid of this kid? I'm just going to tell him he's going to go to jail and then watch.
Yeah. I don't know if there was that much Goodwill Hunting involved in his kind of mindset, or if he literally just thought, I got other cases to work on. This kid's going to jail. Move on next.
When I like to work this into as many conversations as possible. When I ran my marathon, I remember talking to someone who I respected, and they were, we were talking, and I'm like, yeah, I signed up for a marathon. And he gave me like a crooked look, and I'm like, what? He's like, you signed up for a marathon? I said, yeah. He goes, how much do you weigh? And I'm like, I don't know, like 225. He's like, way too heavy to run a marathon. Like, that was his response, right? And I'm like, you might be right, but what the hell? Like, you can't say that shit. But I will tell you, miles 13, 14, 15, 16, I absolutely use that as fuel. Hands down, it played in my head. Like, way too heavy to run a marathon. And the closer I got, mile 18, mile 17, the more belligerent my energy was towards the finish line, simply because he doubted,
Yeah.
So
It's great fuel.
Is it healthy fuel?
I think just based on the conversation so far, all three of us have used it in some way to project, to move us forward. I'm sure you could find plenty other people that found it was catastrophic to them.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it depends on what your personality is. If you have a personality that's going to say, great, now, like, I don't care what you think. Now you've just motivated me to do it 10 times harder. Or do you have it where you say, like, oh, well, if you don't think I can do it, then I definitely can't do it. I don't know. I think it depends on the personality.
It's funny because some people let doubters in, and I've seen people, like Joe said, you do need a couple people that do believe in you, and it's amazing how one person that does believe in you can change the game completely for what you're capable of and what you experience and what you accomplish in life. My family, no one went to college in my family, at least my mom's side of the family. And it was my physics teacher in 9th grade that started talking to me about, engineering and college and what colleges to go to, because I showed an interest in physics. And that dude, Mr. Maxwell, I remember, like, he was that stereotypical, like, teacher that I talked to, that gave me the confidence that maybe I could go to college. Maybe I am going to go to college. Now, he passed away, so he doesn't know I only made it one semester in engineering, but I did transfer over to marketing, and I graduated with a marketing degree. But every time I fix something around the house, I always remind everyone in my family that I was an engineer for one semester. So,
And when you drive a train.
Well, we're glad you switched over to marketing, because you wouldn't have become the SWAT member that you were if you had stayed an engineer.
Pete, I told Pete about the SWAT team.
No, I listened to that episode today. It was great.
Oh, did you? All right, yeah. I wasn't sure. I guess we did talk about it at one point. That was some wild stuff there, man. That was a good example of, I guess, the opposite of being doubted, right?
Dude, we had such a chips on our shoulder, man, because
that was a different kind of chip. Wait, why was it? All right, let's dig into that a little bit.
There's a difference between swagger and chip. Like, swag is like, I'm going to come in, watch this, look at me. Chip is like, watch this, you fucker, you doubted me. I'm going to show you. You know what I'm saying? So there is a difference between swagger and having a
100%.
chip.
Yeah. 100%.
Well, I will say that part of the success we had on those SWAT teams is twofold, right? Our local managers were like, these guys are killing it. We know they can help this book come in. But then we show up, and there's these, like, 35-year-old reps that have been doing this for 10 years looking at us like, there's no way these kids are going to come in here and help us. Like, so we had both. We had people who believed in us, and then we had people. So it's like that's a volatile mix. All they had to do was light a match, and we just blew that place up.
I think they just wanted me out of the office. They were like, you got to ship this guy out of here, man.
Yeah. Well, Joe, we learned last week with the doctor that you're good in small doses. What was that word? In small
dosing?
No, the doctor gave a word. You're good. You're fine in small doses, but you're unhealthy in large doses.
I didn't write that word down, but I'm gonna
You
look.
got to look that up. Look that up.
Yes.
So chip on your shoulder forces you to potentially do things you otherwise might not do. And one of the things that I've always, a chip on my shoulder has pushed me to be, was to work hard. And so much that some people might say, like, brute force is not the way to go to be successful. And it's probably true in some respects, but hard work has always been in my DNA, going back to my very first job. And I wanted to shift gears here a little bit. And I want to talk about your, Joe, I want to talk about your first job. And then Pete, I want you to talk about your first job, because I thought that was an interesting story. Joe, what was your first job?
Let's see. So my first job, I was like probably maybe 11 or 12, and I sold newspapers in front of our church. And it was actually like, you make some money, like you make a couple $100. And but I wake up at, before the first service was at like 7 and then till 12. But it'd be cold, it'd be outside, like in front of the church on like an island by Lawrence Road. If I went to St. Pius, and they'd just give you a stack of Philadelphia Inquirers, and I'd sell them. I'd make $1 for every one I sold. You sell about, 150, 200 papers. That's what I did. And it was a good gig.
Yeah, that's not bad for 11, 12 years old.
Yeah, for real. It was a very sought after concession.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it really was, because it was good money. And then like when my family was done with it, because my brothers did it too, we passed it on to like another family, and they did it. So, but we got it passed on to us from a family who had older kids too. So it was like, Was it
the Merlino family that handed it down to you?
I don't remember the names. But,
Pete, what was your first job?
So my first, I did newspapers as well, but like my first job outside of that was when I was either 14 or 15, I got hired at an engineering company. And that's an interesting story, because what happened was a friend of mine's parents owned it. And she had a birthday party, and we were over at the house, and I've always loved cars. And somehow during conversation, she said, my dad has a Cobra, like an AC Cobra, the original kind. And my instantaneous, I don't even know what made me say it, but I said, if he lets me work on it with him, I'll work for him for free. I knew he had a company. I had no idea what he did for a living. And anyway, she told her dad, and he hired me on the spot. And I worked for him for, 5 years, 6 years, something like that. Almost up until I became a realtor.
What age was that?
I started when I was 14, and I worked for him up until like about 2021, something like that.
And now, you weren't working for free the whole time?
I never worked a day for free, actually. Yeah, I never worked a day for free. I think he just liked the fact that I thought enough to offer, that he hired me. To be honest with you, that entire time, I never touched that Cobra. The whole reason for me offering to work for free, it never worked on it. But he was a huge factor in my life as it was. Anyway, I mean, he was somebody who came up from nothing. He went to Williamson Trade School, came out of there and started an engineering company, built it up, and so he had a lot of grit. And so he taught me at times where I was going through that adolescent period where I was kind of rebelling and whatnot. He was teaching me how to kind of hone that and work hard and kind of keep my head down. And he did. I mean, he made me work very hard all the time. It was never like, I don't feel good today. He did not care. Like, there was no softness about it. But in actuality, I mean, he is a huge part of how I ended up where I am too. Just having his guidance, and at a time when I kind of needed it the most,
Yeah. The opposite of your guidance counselor that you were.
Yeah, very much so.
That you were robbing.
Yeah.
You're going to jail. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. Can we define that? What?
You use the word grit. Do you think there's a difference in grit? Is there a difference in grit and hard work?
Oof. Without knowing the true definitions of them, I'd say yes. I mean, I think you could be hardworking without having that ability to just not let anything stand in your way, which is kind of what I think grit is.
Yeah, I look at grit. Grit is like, it's passion and perseverance. You know, you got to want something bad enough that you're willing to put up with the unexpected challenges that are going to come along. And we've talked about this, Joe, with other entrepreneurs. And one of the conversations we had, I think you said, if you told me all the things that I was going to have to deal with as an entrepreneur ahead of time, I never would have became an entrepreneur.
100%.
Right? Like,
but I think that grit, so the grit factor has to do with, for me, it's like, all right, so you go to business school or whatever, you read a business manual, and everything in the business manual says this is how it's done. And then when you actually go to do it, you throw that completely out the window and be like, all right, so I know that this is the path, like this is how the process works, but that's not going to work right now. And I just have to figure out, grind, and, like literally come up with solutions completely out of the box, and maybe not textbook, but, whatever it takes to solve the problem or get it done. And the willingness to continue to do that, knowing that like, that's not the final solution. Like there's going to be something tomorrow that you've never even thought of. And like, you're going to have to grind through that and then grind through that. And like, so that to me, it's the do whatever it takes mentality to get things accomplished is really, and that's the differentiator. Because like there's a lot of people that start businesses, and I don't know what the statistic is, but most of them fail. So the reason is because once you hit, like when the best laid plans, don't go how they're supposed to, most people they can't overcome it. And then they don't, they just, all right, well, this didn't work, let me try something else. So like the perseverance to get through those issues and just, know that the end result is what you're looking for, and how you get there is not necessarily exactly defined. I think that's what defines the grit factor of how that works.
Pete, what's your correlation to your business as a salesperson, but also as an entrepreneur? Because real estate professionals kind of, they are both. They're salespeople and entrepreneurs in a lot of ways. Like, what are some examples in your career where you were like, wow, I didn't expect this, but you had to tap into something or figure out a way to get around it?
Well, yeah, I mean, just to kind of tap into that same hardworking versus grit conversation, I had a situation that took place last year, the year before, I don't remember at this point, but, like I generally work a ton of hours. That just comes with the territory with being self-employed, but which I think would fall under the hard work category, if you will. But I had a situation where a couple of years ago, I was selling this house, it's a large house, 3-story Victorian style house. And my client had scheduled a cleanout company to come clean the whole house out. And it was 3 days or so before settlement. I think we were settling on like a Wednesday. So they were supposed to come over the weekend. I called her first thing Monday morning and said, how'd the clean out go? How'd everything go? And she said, nobody showed up. So that's kind of where the grit part kicked in. So I called a friend of mine who owns a dumpster company. I had a dumpster dropped off within the hour, and I cleared my schedule for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And I grabbed another person, and for 3 straight days, almost around the clock, we cleaned out that property. I don't love doing that stuff, but like I will not let something stand in the way of having a transaction close if I can avoid it. And in that situation, I felt bad for her. It wasn't her fault that the people that she hired bailed on her and left her kind of high and dry. And so what we ended up filling up 3 40-yard dumpsters. If you have any idea what a 40-yard dumpster size is, I mean, it's about the size of a tractor trailer. It took us 3 days.
She didn't keep anything?
No, yeah, she had moved out everything that she had wanted ahead of time. It was all it was just, she had been in the house for 40 years or something. It was 40 years worth of stuff. It was, she had parted ways with it. She didn't want it anymore. And it wasn't like a wasteful thing. It wasn't, there was nothing that could be donated, unfortunately, just for different reasons over time.
But that on hoarders, right?
Yeah, it was, look, and for whatever reason, it was just a lot of stuff, and a lot of people said like, oh, I would never do that. I would never do that. Well, that's what separates us, is that I will do that. I don't love doing it. I don't advertise like free junk removal as a part of my service. But at the end of the day, if something's standing in the way, I'm going to get through that something.
But it literally ties right back into how we started this conversation. And that is that, like, you are used to adversity because you faced adversity. You know what I mean? So like you were blessed with these challenges, whether it's in childhood, adolescence, or even young adulthood, that when you are given the opportunity to overcome adversity, you build a muscle and you build your resilience to where other people, like Joe said, the first sign of bad weather, they're already packing up the tent.
Not to cut you off, but it just like all clicked in my head. So the grit fact, like how this all ties in, is that people who don't, on the surface, who don't have the natural talent or natural attributes to accomplish something on the outside, as an outsider looking in, then those that, like, when they say they're going to do something, those around them will say, well, you don't fit the profile. You don't have the pedigree, the intelligence. You don't have the degree, the education or the physicality, whatever it is. So they'll naturally doubt, right? So that person then takes that internally and says, F you, I'm going to do it. So that creates a scrappy individual with a chip on their shoulder because of the fact that someone told them they're not. So where the grit comes in, it's someone who doesn't have the natural abilities or skills to complete this task, and irrespective of that, gets it done through other means and just through sheer willpower to get it done. So that's where I feel like the chip on the shoulder combined with the grit to get it done without the tools that would naturally get those tasks done. So like in your case, like maybe it's a little bit different in terms of like clean out and things like that. But for somebody where we see grit, it's because this person, against all odds, against all abilities, was able to complete this task or get something done, just through sheer willpower. So I think that's where it all kind of ties in, I guess.
It brings you back to the old saying, hard work beats talent that doesn't work hard.
Like hustle beats talent when talent doesn't hustle.
Yeah. That's exactly what I said, Joe. Like, why do you have to reframe?
Well, you said hard work.
but so the hard work factor is the differentiator, right? Like God-given skills and abilities and talents, or I guess I should say the talent is the ability. You practice that ability, you work on that ability. You know what I mean? It can become a skill, and some people just have to work a little harder. But when you don't quit, that and you just keep putting in the work and you keep putting in the work and you compound, you do the work on yourself. You know what I mean? That's another thing. Like a lot of people don't do they're not honest with themselves. They don't actually look within and say, okay, where do I need to improve in order to accomplish this thing, right? And those are, maybe they bang their head against the wall for 5 years before they realize there's something they need to do. They got to become a little bit of a different person in order to accomplish this big goal that they have. And it, it's a long journey. Grit requires patience because, especially in some of your bigger objectives, some of your bigger goals, sprinting is easy, right? Doing something maximum effort for a short period of time is actually pretty easy. It's giving your maximum effort and then having to tap into some other resource, whether it's your doubters or whether it's, hard work or whether like your creativity, and just continuing to put one foot in front of the other towards that big goal that makes or breaks someone's ability to accomplish something. Pete, talk about grit, right? You're going to love this story, Joe. Can you talk about the foreclosure?
Yeah, sure. So a big portion of my business for a lot of years was doing repossessions. It's trailed off.
Gritty work. That's gritty work to begin with. These are not like most real estate agents shy away from this stuff because it's not easy work. There's a lot of shit you got to do.
Yeah, I mean, originally the way I got into it was I saw people and how they were treated during the foreclosure process, and it just didn't make me very happy, to be honest with you. I thought it was agents that were working in that world, not all of them, but some were kind of kicking people when they were down. And it's like, I don't know how much dominance you have to show somebody who's already losing everything. Like you can treat people like humans at a time like that, in my opinion. So that's kind of how I got into it. I wanted to still accomplish the same goals for the banks of getting their assets back, but do it in a way that the people could leave with some dignity and feel, I don't know, better about the situation, all things considered. But anyway, so I had this one foreclosure one time in Glen Mills, and it's close to my house. I was like, oh, I'll just pop over. I'm going to serve the notice. So when I go over for my initial contact.
Wait. So Pete had to serve the foreclosure notice. Like that's part of the deal, right?
Yeah.
That was already crazy.
All right. Okay.
It's everything kind of from start to finish. So I'm sending the paperwork. I'm walking over, or not walking. I drove over to the people's houses, knock on the door, and the wife answers the door. And I said, hi. I always open with this stupid joke because I meant it, but I was like trying to like soften it a bit, saying like, hey, don't shoot the messenger, literally. I said, hey, I got a piece of paper here just to look at, to let you know your home's been foreclosed on. We want to find a peaceful transition to have you leave the house. And she said, no, you don't know what you're talking about. Our house is not being foreclosed on. And so I'm double checking. She's making her confidence in the fact that I was so wrong made me kind of question if I was at the right address. I'm like, I've got to be at the right place. Fast forward a little bit. It turns out her husband had all of their mail sent to his business address. So she did not know that they had been foreclosed on. So she said, let me call my husband. I'm going to have him come over and we're going to sort this out. So I thought, no problem. This is fine. So a couple minutes later, there's a guy flying down the street in a BMW 7 Series. And I'm like, okay, here it goes. Pulls in the driveway. And as soon as he pulls in the driveway, he hops out of the car and he puts his hand behind his back. I said, whoa. I know what you're implying. Stop right there. I've got a piece of paper. You don't have to pull a gun on me. I get it. I said, you could do this. You could shoot me. And even if you got away with it, they're just going to send some other person with another piece of paper, and you're going to have to just keep shooting people over and over again. So why don't we dial it back? And so that kind of calmed down the temperament a little bit. And so I'm going through the process, and he admitted that the mail was being sent to the office and that he had fallen behind, that they were losing the house and all that. And so during that process, like I have to go through, because part of it is I have to, if people will allow me to go into the house, take photos and stuff. So I'm trying to worm my way into that situation. So I'm making small talk, and I said, what do you do for a living, sir? And he said, I repossess cars. And when he said he repossessed cars, I lost my mind. So I was like, wait a minute. So you have a gun on you because you're afraid when part of your job is to go repossess somebody's asset, that they're going to come out and they're going to pull a gun on you. So then you have a gun as well. And he said, yes. I said, go fuck yourself. And he said, what? I said, you just did the same thing to me. The thing that you're fearful of in this situation, you're now doing to me. And he did end up apologizing, but that sucked. The whole thing sucked.
How crazy is that?
Sorry for cursing, by the way.
Wow. That's so that's how that process works. You get served, then you have to go in and like take pictures, and while they're there and everything, they're just like,
yeah. So what ends up happening in a lot of these cases is even though the banks are entitled to get the property back, they can save themselves a lot of time and effort and money if they offer people money to leave, which sounds kind of convoluted that you would pay somebody to leave, but you're paying people to leave under certain conditions. And part of those conditions are you won't destroy the property, but they won't know if you destroyed the property, don't destroy the property unless you let me in first, so I can take pictures of it the day that I serve the paperwork to you, and then compare those photos to the day that you're moving out to then pay you your check. And so a prime example, this only happened once, but a prime example of this was I had a situation where we were taking back a house in Chester Springs. It was a new community. House was built in mid 2000s or so, maybe 08. And so I went through on the day they let me through. I took all the photos. The house was pretty nice. I sent the photos back to the bank. Everything was good. I think we had negotiated a $10,000 move out fee. And then on the day of the move out, well, actually, pause that for a second. Leading up to that, I noticed that there was a pod in the driveway, but it never occurred to me that that pod was being switched out, which I just live and learn, I guess. I don't know if there's tag numbers on them or not, but I just didn't notice. Anyway, on the day of the move out, I got a call at 7 o'clock in the morning, give or take, and a person said, "We're done. Bye." And I was like, "Well, what about the money? Don't you want to meet up for the money?" Nothing. Complete silence. So I drove over to the house and I walked in and they took everything. And I mean everything. The kitchen's gone, the tub's gone, the toilets are gone, vanities are gone, everything. Every hardwood floor, they ripped the hardwood floors up. They took everything. They turned it into a shell. And so I called the police, and the police showed up and said, like, we can't prove that they did it. And I said, well, she just texted me at 7 o'clock in the morning saying we're done. Now it's 8 o'clock in the morning. So unless you got the fastest demo crew in the world that came over here in an hour, like, I'm pretty sure we can prove they did it.
She meant we're done the demo. We're done. We got everything. We're done.
That's the way the bank looked at it. The bank never pressed charges with them because the banks thought, like, oh, well, they did our demo for us, even though my opinion is that none of the demo needed to take place. And they wrote on. They left one wall up in the living room. They took drywall. They literally took everything. It was the craziest thing in the world. And they wrote "You're welcome" on the wall.
That's insane. They leave.
When I talked to the neighbors, I was like, "Did you see what happened?" They said, "Oh yeah, they kept getting all these pods delivered, and they'd fill it up with a bunch of construction material, and then they called another pod, and they filled that out with construction. So they took all of the materials with them.
That's not cheap."
I'm like, what are you gonna? How much could you sell a used toilet for on Craigslist? Like, how are you gonna turn this into money? I don't understand.
That's wild, man. But but you know what though? You know, again, like talking about grit. I think that it takes a special person to be able to kind of thrive in that environment. You know what I mean? In that hostility, in that unexpectedness. And I think that's why I think that's why you've gotten to the point where you are from a professional standpoint. And you stayed out of jail, dude. That's the best.
Yeah, way to go. So far.
Congrats on that.
All right, let's get into two truths and a lie. I'm going to recap. We stayed away from a lot of Super Bowl stuff, even though I want to give one last analogy here real quick. Michael Jordan lived on the doubters. Jalen Hurts ignored the doubters. I think they both had very different approaches to their success when it came to doubters. And if we have more time, I would like to go down that path about the Jalen Hurts thing, because I think that guy was purpose driven for a totally different reason. Even though he was doubted at every single stage of his career, I don't think he let the doubt fuel him. I think he ignored the doubt. What do you think?
I don't know. I think that guy's different, man.
Yeah, he's built different.
I love Jalen. I think he's weird. Like I think he's weird. Like he's too quiet, and there's something. I don't know. I don't know him personally, obviously, but like
I just like his one-liners, man.
He's just too cool. He's just too cool of a cat, man. He's a cool cat, dude.
I didn't walk through the fire just to smell the smoke.
Like, come on, man. How can you be that cool all the time? The dude's like the coolest dude, all soft spoken and like, yeah, man, yo. It's like, keep that guy away from my girlfriend,
Yeah, walk softly, carry a big cigar.
Yeah, but what was Jordan like? I know we got to wrap this up, but like, I don't recall Jordan during his prime. I know we know him now, like being a figurehead of what he is, but like during his prime, he was pretty similar, right? He wasn't super chatty, right? Am I missing?
He was flashier. I think, for sure. He had more vices. I don't think Jalen, has the vices that Jordan had.
Yeah, but we know the boy. We know the vices.
Jordan was out and about. He was out and about. He'd be on the golf course and
true.
Oh yeah, but I'm saying like he would bet people like $10,000 on a putt. You know what I mean? Like the dude was a degenerate.
In terms of the media, kind of what he's saying. Like in terms of the media, Jordan was way more out there. Like I don't think you see Jalen, in the celebrity magazines and stuff like that.
That's true.
Jordan definitely was.
But I know for a fact when he talked to Jordan, he loved when people doubted him, going all the way back to his high school basketball coach that didn't take that cut him, that whole story. He fueled on doubt. He needed people to doubt him.
Yeah.
What's that?
And gambling. He was a high school coach says, "I'm going to make it to the NBA." Oh, yeah.
You know how much he made on that bet that he bet his high school coach?
You give me 10-1 odds.
He purposely got cut. He purposely got cut from that team so he could go back and bet the coach I'll make it next year.
Yeah, he's sandbagged.
Yes.
That's it.
All right. So 2 truths and a lie. Let's get back to it. We got the first was
I grew up behind a future Hall of Fame
athlete. The second was sold a house to Fred X. And the third one was
Super Bowl
champ lives in his neighborhood. Joe, which one do you think it is?
So let's see. So future Hall of Fame. Did you say the sport that the future Hall of Famer is in? No,
I did not.
All right. So I know.
And wait. Here's the other question: is it a current future Hall of Famer, or were they are they in the Hall of Fame now? They weren't in the Hall of Fame when Pete lived there. He said future Hall of Famer.
So when he lived there, right? So
I'm not to ask other questions.
Correct.
This isn't 20 questions. You got to go with what he said.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying.
All
right. So
hustle works better than talent. Go ahead. What were you?
Mess it up, bro. All right. So I know where he told me where he grew up. I kind of know the area. So you got Tug McGraw. You got Mike Schmidt. So it said it wasn't Mike Schmidt. So I got that out of him. So it's either Tug McGraw. Is Tug McGraw in the Hall of Fame? Did he make the Hall of Fame?
That's a good question.
But I know that they're all kind of that area. But then there's Kurt Schilling. If he's Kurt Schilling lives in West. All right. So let's move on to the next one. Fred X definitely lives in the area. Know that. I actually hung out with him one night. This was funny at a bar. I'll tell that story. I'll take that story offline. But he's a cool dude. So, and then Super Bowl champ in your neighborhood, media, maybe. All right. So I'm going to go with. I believe that the lie is Super Bowl champ in your neighborhood.
I'm going to say, I know Pete a little better, so there is a little bit of a disadvantage there. I'm going to say the lie was he sold a house to Freddie Mitchell.
Okay. Kenny, you are correct. But there is a caveat. So I'll just run through them real quick.
They're all lies.
He didn't sell him the house. He repoed his house.
Yeah, the two truths real quick. So I grew up behind Mike Richter, who was a goalie for the Rangers and is in the NHL Hall of Fame.
Okay.
Nolan Smith lives in my neighborhood now, who obviously just won the Super Bowl. But with Fred X, I only didn't sell my house out of my choosing. I don't share the same affinity as you do for him. I think he drives me crazy. And so he got my phone number at one point and he called me and he said, "Hey, this is Freddie Mitchell. Do you know who I am?" And I could tell by his voice that it was. And I said, "Yeah, I know who you are." And he's like, "4th and 26." And I was like, yeah, no, I know who you are.
Wow.
And at the time, he was allegedly going through issues with the IRS. Allegedly. And so he said, "I want to buy this house that you have in South Philadelphia." And I said, "Look, that's fine, but I'm going to need proof of funds." And he said, yeah, no problem. What are proof of funds? And I said, "I just need an account that shows," because it was a cash only purchase, that shows that you have cash in the account for the amount of the purchase. And he said, "I already told you, I'm Freddie Mitchell." I was like, yeah, no, I know who you are, man, but I still need it from you. And he said, I want you to call that bank and you tell that bank that Freddie Mitchell wants to buy their house. And I said, "Freddie, it's Sovereign Bank. They don't know who you are. I need to see an account with the amount on it." And he said, I went to the bank today and they told me I've got carpe diem for whatever I want." And I was like, "What did you say?" He said, "My bank told me I had carpe diem And I was like, seize the day? I was like, I think you mean carte blanche, man. He's like, you know what I mean. I was like, you need to find another agent, man.
Oh, dude, that's funny. That's good stuff, man.
Yeah.
AJ, he's buddies with a mutual friend of ours. I'll tell you later. Freddie Mitchell.
Hopefully your friend doesn't watch this. Allegedly.
I always say, if you're here at minute 48, God bless you. Like, you know, anything we say now is fair game. You know, like one person listening.
My mom's going to watch it throughout the entire thing. So
shout out to my
I have
brother.
no idea what we're talking about at this point.
Shout out.
All right, Pete, I appreciate it, my man. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate
Catching up again soon.
Thanks for listening to Selling the Dream. We know you don't want to miss a single episode, so go subscribe today wherever you get your podcasts. And then make sure to share the show with your friends and leave us a review.